Hi everyone, welcome to another Hattons Model Railways live stream, and today I'm giving you some of the basic guides into adding a goods shed onto your steam era double O gauge model railway. There's quite a lot of different buildings you can have. As you see surrounding me here, there's a lot of different variations you can pick up, but there's some really great opportunities to get a characterful scene such as this onto your layout. So I'll be showing you the purpose and the different features that I have on my layout here. I'll be showing you some of the history of them too, giving you some prototype examples of photos past and present of the classic goods shed operation. And of course, if you have any questions, please do ask them in the chat or ask them in the comments on the video, or do get in touch with our customer experience team too. So I thought we'd start with looking at a preserved goods shed, which is, it's got to be one of the best replications out there, really. This is at the Beamish Museum in Northeast England. And we can see here the whole purpose for why a goods shed actually exists. It is the transshipment of freight from the railways off onto either carried by horse or person, or later on into the 20th century by motorized vehicle, transporting it around the various parts of the world that the railways can't get to. Now, to really understand the purpose of a goods shed, you've got to head back into history and realize that in the late 19th and right up to the middle of the 20th century, transporting most, if not all, goods was done by train. It was the fastest mode of transport available at the time. There was no mechanized road vehicles that could transport items too. So pretty much every type of freight, large or small, was moved by rail. And of course, at the railhead, where you had your station or other facilities, you had to have the buildings there to be able to unload the different trains that ran out there too. So a lot of stations out there, even the smallest stations that you may find on the network, did have really adequate goods transshipment facilities such as this. And from the 1850s onwards, you did start to see these full goods sheds being provided. There's a lot of different variation. As you can see, I've got a stone-built goods shed here. There was wooden goods sheds, brick-built goods sheds, all different types. And that really can depend on the company that built them and designed them, and also the location that they were built to, mainly relying on what local materials are out there. Similar to a lot of railway stations in those areas too, you may find some operators stuck with brick buildings, some with stone. And if you're wanting to choose the right goods shed for your layout, do have a look at what the buildings are like in your chosen area. And indeed, there's a lot of the goods sheds that do survive out there today, so you can really see what an appropriate model is like. So I've got a quite small formation here now. These did stretch really quite large on some layouts, but looking at some of the smaller sizes, I'll take you back to Beamish again for a moment, and we can just see a really basic goods shed here. This is probably the minimum you'd require really for unloading and loading goods. You've got the actual goods shed itself. You have a small siding there to be able to shunt wagons out of the way. You have a yard crane, which is absolutely fantastic for loading the various different items into and out of your open wagons, but also your closed wagons there with the opening doors can be loaded and unloaded onto the platforms too. This is the best photo I've got of the inside of a goods shed. Unfortunately, it is an overgrown example, as you can see here, but a lot of the original facilities are still there, including the cranes and the platforms too. And if you wished, you can detail the inside of your goods shed with similar facilities that you see on the screen right now. So the goods sheds do change between operator. The stone-built buildings were mainly found in the north of England. I'll show you some examples here on an O-gauge model railway. And Stephen, I hope this inspires you as a Great Western Railway layout on your screen here right now. And this also shows some of the locations for goods sheds that you can find. They were mainly joined onto the stations that they were part of. We can see here this particular goods shed is right next to the station platform. If we head over to Barton-on-Humber on the former London North Eastern Railway network, we'll see this small terminus station has a substantial goods facility over on the left-hand side with a full canopy over it. One last one to look at for now is Bakewell in the heart of the Derbyshire Dales. And we can see there the substantial station, but also the goods facilities towards the rear too. One really important thing to bear in mind is what traffic would be working into your goods shed, depending on what facilities you need. Now, bear in mind again, as we mentioned towards the start of the stream, this was the main way of moving a lot of different items during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. So most of the goods sheds did have the actual shed itself and the transshipment platform either inside or outside. A lot of domestic coal was shipped as well between the different stations. And here I've got an example of not only a plank wagon, but just behind it there, I have a coal staves too. So this would be a raised platform that you can see here. And then the open wagons would be opened and the coal put into the coal staves and then transferred between the houses and buildings in the area. So shipping coal from the mines to the separate facilities was a really important part for a lot of goods sheds too. After that, the different traffic really depends on the area you are operating. There are further facilities out there, such as cattle pens, where livestock could be kept, but you'd mainly find those either near farms or heading into the larger towns where those animals were taken for, well, whatever they were taken for, really, we should imagine there, but that really can depend on your location. If you're looking for quite a generic goods shed or goods facility, the items I've got here really are the main items that you'd need. A goods shed of any of the different styles and a coal staves for unloading the coal. Everything else then is a little bit more specific, but if you stick with those, you've got it absolutely spot on to start with. And to give you another model example there, we can see this is a bit more of a substantial facility. This is provided with a full goods platform with its own canopy above too. Various different road vehicles ready to go there. And the reason I wanted to point this image out to you today is you can see the yard style there too. This is indeed the sets in the floor or cobbles in some places. And I do have those in front of me here. I'll just move my wagon out of the way again. And you can see some of those that I've put down surrounding the shed where the various wagons, the road vehicles would then come in and take away the different items. And again, that's something that's really good to add your own custom level. You can buy horses and carts if you're modelling the Victorian and Edwardian era. But by the time of the grouping in the 1920s, the big four railway companies had started to pick up their own motorised road vehicles. And we do sell a wide variety of these in different guises, fully painted in the company schemes or the private colour schemes of the time too. So we've covered the major fittings that we've got here now. What about some of the smaller items? They're no less important, but they're a really good way to add detail for a bargain price too. I have chosen some of the PD Marsh yard details. These come in 5 different varieties, pre-painted, made from resin, and you can just about see those on my layout that I've got in front of us here. These are really good just to add some of the different items that would be transferred by the railways during the steam era on your layouts. As the thing to remember is at this time, there wasn't really what we know now as block freight trains, where it's all the same type of freight just in one train. The services that ran throughout the UK for more of a century were commonly known as pickup goods. So the trains such as this with a small tank engine and a medium-sized rake of vehicles, all carrying different items for different stations. We have here some coal wagons, some covered open wagons, and some closed vans too. And these would stop at every single station or most stations on a route, transfer the wagons that were taken from that depot and unload 1 or 2 while they were there too. So you would find that mixed freight services with a lot of different operations did run at the time there. So do take a bit of a look at the options that we've got here so far. I'll just give you a bit more inspiration from those real life photos. And then we'll start looking at some of the smaller pieces. We can see here that this model has added quite a few different details with different items that they are preparing to load and unload onto their wagons. You can buy various kits for the yard cranes. Again, they are different styles between the different operators, but all the details are on that link in the description there for more information. And we have included the various builders and the operators of those cranes too. We've seen those on a few of our photos so far, and they're essential for unloading some of the larger items from the railway vehicles that went into these goods sheds. One of the other important items, mainly you just need one of these, but coming into and out of a yard, is a loading gauge. Again, slightly different designs by slightly different operators, but achieving the exact same purpose. And this was to make sure that any items that had been loaded onto the wagons at the goods shed were indeed within the gauge of the railway, so they wouldn't hit any of the bridges, signals, or anything else above the lines as they went down the tracks. This worked. You can just about figure it out from the picture. The hoop that comes down from the horizontal bar would be the gauge itself, so that would be set to the maximum size that you could load your wagons to. If the load hit the gauge, it would rattle and make a noise, and therefore you would know that your load was out of gauge, and you'd have to modify that before going back out onto your railway. So I've got a couple of these dotted around. I've got one in my yard, and I've got one here too. These are from the Pico Model Scene Kit, and they are very easy to put together. Just two parts that clip together. A little bit more detailing on that, and that is really good to go already for your layout. And you can pick those up for about £3 too. So if you've already got a goods yard and you want to enhance some of the details that you have there, you can pick up some bargain options such as the detailing packs and the loading gauge there too. So finally, last but not least, we're heading into the more modern era now. We're heading into the 1940s, 1950s, and certainly some of the larger yards will then start to pick up lights in them as well to be able to be used 24 hours a day, especially with lighting becoming more cheaper to use and operate in real life. And we have various different sets of yard lights available too. These again are findable on the link in the description. We have working models from the TrainSave range, which have a little bulb in them that shines with an authentic yellow glow, and then two wires which you hook up to your electrical circuit. And we also have non-working yard lights too. So if you're not too fussed about them working and you are a modeler on a budget, you can pick up the yard lamps that are in kit form too. And you'd see them mainly in the larger yards that were expected to be used throughout the day and night. But on some of the more rural branch lines, as we saw at Barton-on-Humber before, there's no light facilities there other than on the station. So these weren't expected to be used at all times of the day or night. But coming back to the goods shed itself, you can buy various different models right now of many different construction methods. The model I've got here is the Hornby Granite Station goods shed. This is based from a model on the Settle and Carlisle Railway, so authentic for you modelers of the north of England. Metcalfe Models create many different kits that are available right now in 00 and N gauges, and this is their brick-built single-track goods shed. You can see this comes with the platform inside already for unloading the different items, and also a pair of useful offices too. These would either be crew staff mess rooms, or the bottom right is actually a weigh bridge, which actually weighs the load that's going onto the wagons to make sure the loads there don't break the wagons by being too heavy when they go onto them. So some really great options from Metcalfe there. And finally, from the likes of Gagemaster and Wills kits, you can pick up the plastic kits too. And do check out our instructional skills cast videos on building card or plastic kits if you want to find out a little bit more information on putting those together. But do have a look at what we've got here. There's some great options if you want to add a goods yard to your layout, large or small. And if you are a steam era modeler, as we've seen on the images here today, it's pretty much an essential part of a station scene. Whether you are modeling a larger station, as we see here at Bakewell, or a smaller station, as we've seen a couple of times now at Barton-upon-Humber, or indeed a very small facility that you can see here at Beamish Museum up in the northeast. And this gives a great chance for you micro layout fans out there too, who may not have a lot of space to create a model, but still want something fun and simple to operate. You can fit a goods shed and a couple of wagons and some points in easily in a 4-foot space. This little diorama that I have here is just under 2 feet in length, and you could extend this a little bit either side and still have a lot to play with there in a very small space, maybe using one of our precision baseboards as I have got here. So do take a look out there. There are so many different types of goods sheds. They were really built to a lot of different styles for a lot of different purposes. I couldn't resist showing you this really unusual photo. It made me look twice anyway. This is a goods shed with passenger facilities attached to it at Blythe Bridge in Staffordshire. So this is something really unusual, and it shows just how the buildings were adapted for the purposes that they had to fulfill on the railways out there. So if anyone does fancy picking up one of the kits and making something like that, I'd certainly be interested in seeing it out there. But today, we've covered most of the major basics that you'll fit in a goods shed. Of course, as you can imagine, there are a huge amount more than this dependent on the facilities that you are modelling, whether you're looking at adding further coal staves on there, or cattle pens for livestock traffic, or some more of the extra goods traffic that did operate on Britain's railways during the steam era. This video is to give you a bit of an indication of where to get started. And as always, every single thing I've shown you here today is available right now on hattons.co.uk. That's the card kits, the plastic kits, the track, the wagons, the resin goods sheds, loading gauges, detail packs. Every single part of what I've got here today is available for you right now too, should you wish to pick one of those up. So I hope I've given you a little bit of inspiration here on putting a goods shed onto your layout. It's a fascinating way to use a little bit of a corner or some space that you may have left over to make something that's really interesting to operate and help tell the story of the British railways that are out there too, especially in the steam era where we saw a lot of pickup goods trains shuttling between these different facilities from the late 1830s right up until the 1960s with the end of steam on British Rail. So a huge amount for you to go at here. And indeed, some modelers already have showing off great facilities that we can see here on these model railway layouts that will give some fantastic inspiration for you too. Going from little to large there with the full facilities that you can see on the screen and the various different road vehicles coming to pick up the transshipped freight from the railways. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to learn anything more, please leave a comment on the video or do get in touch with our customer experience team, who would be more than happy to help you out with any queries you have. If you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to head over to our Facebook or YouTube pages and check out our further how-to guides. So far, we've got how to model a modern era depot and a steam era shed, and we're looking at producing further guides too. So if you'd liked this, do let us know what you'd like to see in the future, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel on Facebook and YouTube too. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to click that link in the description for more information on everything I've shown you here today. Otherwise, I'll show you those images once again from the classic goods sheds of British Railways, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.